I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. You know what time it is? Late. That's what time it is. Everybody, welcome to the show. We got a good one today. So a lot of stuff that we want to talk about. Before I get into it, of course, all the different topics that I plan on talking about today. Oh, look, you know what just happened to voting rights? Republican filibuster, and of course, Manchin and Sinema joining with Republicans to stop the vote, to literally stop people from being able to vote easier. Weird. It's almost as if, you know, Manchin and Sinema are blocking Joe Biden's agenda. Weird how that works out. Now, by the way, just to show you, just an interesting poll here that I found on Twitter. Justin, Kyrsten Sinema's favorability among Democrats in Arizona is a total of 8%. Disaster. Absolute disaster. Wow. Even less popular than the rest of Congress. Jesus. Wow. By the way, also FBI raiding Henry Cuellar's home. Henry Cuellar, a very corrupt corporate Democrat, massive ties to the fossil fuel industry. And so, wow. What an interesting couple of days. How is it even that high? I don't know. Well, hey, you know, there are some Democrats that really like the girl, the boss. She's the boss. You know what I'm saying? She got girl boss energy. 80% of Arizona Democrats view her unfavorably. Oof. Ouch. Disaster. 11%, to be fair, unsure. According to Civics, a Civics poll. Damn. And that was as of 1/14. So not even it was last Friday. It's about a week ago. All right, so absolute effing disaster. That said, we have, of course, I'm going to talk about one part of Joe Biden's speech yesterday, which was not good. It was a bit meandering and just generally hard to watch. It was quite hard to watch. And so there was one part that, of course, stuck out, and that was when he took a question from a Fox News reporter. So I'm going to talk about that. We have, of course, right-wing networks that are not doing so well. We have the January 6th committee looking to interview Ivanka Trump. Interesting. We have OANN begging viewers to get dirt. That's a fun story. And, of course, you're not going to be surprised to find out that rich people do not understand how much money or how little money the average American worker actually makes. So that's kind of a no duh, but it's also kind of an amazing story as well. So, you know, stick around for that. It's going to be fun. Now, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. It gets this out to everybody, everyone you can, because YouTube sure as hell ain't going to share it, to serve it up to anyone new. Those of you on Facebook, hi. Please share as well. And thank you so much. I'm growing on Facebook a lot, actually. So I want to thank you all for tuning in and sharing my videos and interacting and stuff. I really, really appreciate it. So, all right. Hey, same to everybody on Twitch. Love you all on Twitch. By the way, SBloom85, thank you for resubbing at Tier 1 yesterday. Appreciate that for 7 months and counting. I'm sorry, no, 14 months and counting. Look at that. That is amazing stuff. So, thank you. All right, let's do it. Let's go. President Joe Biden had his first press conference of the new year, and it did not go well. And during this press conference, he lobbed a bit of a strange attack, not at Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, who have been blocking his agenda, but against Bernie Sanders, of all people. So now, let me show you the video.
Why are you trying so hard in your first year to pull the country so far to the left?
Well, I'm not. I don't know what you consider to be too far to the left. If in fact we're talking about making sure that we had the money for COVID, making sure we had the money to put together the bipartisan infrastructure, making sure we were able to provide for those things that in fact would significantly reduce the burden on working class people, but make them, they have to continue to work hard. I don't know how that is pointed to the left. If you may recall, you guys have been trying to convince me that I am Bernie Sanders. I'm not. I like him, but I'm not Bernie Sanders. I'm not a socialist. I'm a mainstream Democrat, and I have been. And mainstream Democrats have overwhelmed me. If you notice, the 48 of the 50 Democrats supported me in the Senate on virtually everything I've asked.
That is a fascinating near Freudian slip. I just wanted to point that out. All right. So, look, I'm not a socialist. Well, yeah, we know that already. Now, the only people out there that are calling you a socialist is people like Fox News who are insane. No, he's not a socialist. Biden's not a socialist. Neither is Bernie Sanders, by the way. Bernie Sanders is a social democrat. And I know, like, he calls himself a democratic socialist. His policy positions are social democrat, which in the rest of the civilized world is actually center left. Okay. Now, here's the thing. So you've heard from that Fox News reporter, Peter Doocy. That's the framing. The framing itself is awful, but what do you expect, right? They spent the last year calling Joe Biden a communist, literally. Incredibly absurd. Why would you take a question from Fox News? Totally absurd framing. And by the way, Biden's agenda, understand that Biden's agenda is not even really left. The Build Back Better, right? Build Back Better has universal pre-K, expanding Medicare to cover hearing, an expansion of the child tax credit, affordable housing, and some minor increases, tax increases on the wealthy. So now Biden also said, oh, well, I want to forgive some student loan debt up to $10,000. Now, Joe Biden has not forgiven any student loan debt, even though he could absolutely today. And so, look, understand that that's not socialism. Socialism is not government benefits. Socialism is the democratization of the workplace. Socialism is where the workers are the owners and the bosses of the company. None of these policies that Joe Biden has put together are socialist. These are the very basics offered by pretty much every developed country who is not barbaric towards their own citizens. I mean, we're the only modern country that does not have paid leave. Paid leave didn't even make it into the newest, most final version of Build Back Better, which is about $1.75 trillion. That's not in there. That's not in there. But again, holy crap. According to Fox News, allowing kids to go to preschool, universal pre-K, is the harbinger of communism. Fox News, total joke. Total joke. I feel like in any other actual country that isn't broken like the United States, that Fox News would basically be a parody channel. People would turn it on and go, oh, look at those funny, weird politicians and news people. They're so crazy. But this is a reality. This is a reality. And so here's the thing, too. I don't think the United States should be considered a developed country anymore. I mean, sure, we're incredibly wealthy, yes. But again, in a lot of places, a lot of areas, we lag. We're very deficient compared to the rest of the developed world. Infrastructure, for example. Education, healthcare, income and wealth equality, outcomes. Oh, and of course, happiness, right? I mean, right now, we are run by oligarchs and corporations who use elected representatives that are confined to a tightly controlled two-party system in order to gain the outcome that is generally favorable towards corporate interests, while the needs of the average citizen go generally ignored unless they happen to coincide with the desires of the corporation. So now, going back to Biden, right? Well, he says, I'm not Bernie Sanders. Well, again, that's very obvious. Very obvious, not only from your rhetoric or your policies or anything like that. But here's the thing, right? Joe Biden, remember, Joe Biden wasn't exactly most people's pick. In the primary, I mean. When it came between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, obviously, more people chose Joe Biden, and for obvious reasons. But again, during the primary, the establishment was so freaked out by the possibility that Bernie Sanders could have won Super Tuesday and then went on to, of course, win the nomination and beat Donald Trump, that Biden's old friend, Obama, Barack Obama, former president, also very well liked, by the way. He decided to make a few well-placed phone calls to convince most of the other candidates to basically drop out and coalesce around Joe Biden, basically giving all those other voters, directing them towards Joe Biden. Now, they had to combine their power to stop Bernie Sanders. And the reason is, of course, you look at the policies championed by Bernie Sanders, they happen to be popular with the American people, but not so popular with the corporate owner-donors. Bernie Sanders also has a track record of fighting for progressive policies in a system that is very hostile to those policies. That's why you haven't seen a lot of the policies that he pushed get enacted. However, there were lesser forms and lesser fights that Bernie Sanders had absolutely won. And things like, again, helping, the VA system, trying to help that a little bit, make that a little bit better, doing small expansions when he's able to. And so, again, there's not a lot that you can get done in a system that is absolutely hostile to any form of what they consider to be socialism, which is just, social programs that help regular people. But then, here's the thing, right? I wonder why Joe Biden decides that he wants to take a little bit of a shot at Bernie, because right now, and a lot of you are wondering, like, where was the insult? Where was the insult? Well, the insult, again, is basically saying Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Now, he describes himself as a democratic socialist, right? But remember, in American media, that it's a pejorative. All right? And so that's a pejorative. That's used as a pejorative, especially among the older electorate. And so when you call someone a socialist, it's usually pretty derisive. And I've got an example of that, by the way. And I want to compare that to the things that he said about, for example, Kyrsten Sinema. So now, that said, before I do that, I just got to note that it's not Bernie Sanders that is stopping Biden's agenda. And we've already seen the blame begun. It started with, some other hosts on cable news, and then it went to Hillary Clinton coming out and saying, well, we need to start being more moderate. We need to ignore the progressives. Oh, it's fine to, to fight for things, but we got to be a little bit more pragmatic and go for what actually wins. Well, what wins is popular policy, not do-nothing centrism. And that's what it is. And if you can remember, Joe Biden ran as a guy who I am a moderate, I can get things done. I can work with Republicans. You were there during Obama. You were there when Republicans said, no, we're not going to do anything with Obama. What makes you think that you're different, considering that you've watched the same cable media that I have, okay? You've seen the exact same things that I have. What makes you think that you are different than, Barack Obama? That Republicans were going to treat you differently. I mean, there's only one thing I can think of. And look, honestly, it might be a little bit unfair for me to point that out. He might have thought, look, the Republicans will work with me because I'm white. Now, of course, they didn't want to work with Obama. He's black. But maybe they'll work with me because we know Republicans are racist. And so, well, I'm white, so they'll work with me. I don't know. Maybe that's super, super unfair of me to point out. And everybody's going to get like super mad at me for pointing that out. But seriously, that could have been maybe the thought process behind, don't worry, I can get Republicans to work with me. If I'm just moderate, and I appeal to them because I worked with them, and plus the fact that I'm white, it makes them more comfortable to deal with me. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's unreasonable or not. That said, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, not Bernie, those are the ones that are blocking Biden's agenda. Bernie Sanders is fighting for that agenda. He is not fighting for his agenda, which is things like Medicare for all. No, he's not out there saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to block Build Back Better unless you give me Medicare for all. He's not doing that. He's saying, okay, look, I'm going to put my policies in the back burner, okay? The stuff that I care most about, healthcare and for regular people, and I'm going to push stuff that's watered down, but will ultimately do some good. And I'm going to push it, and I'm going to fight for it really, really hard. And yet, let me show you how the difference here between how he addresses somebody, his friend, describes him as his friend, okay? The guy that he likes, Bernie Sanders, versus Kirsten Sinema. So here's that.
First of all, she's smart as the devil, number one.
I beat the socialists. That's how I got elected. That's how I got the nomination.
She's very supportive of the environmental agenda in my legislation. Very supportive.
Do I look like a socialist? Look at my career, my whole career. I am not a socialist.
I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist. Bernie Sanders, he's a socialist. I beat the socialist. Okay, I beat the socialist. I'm not him. No. I'm the moderate. And that Kirsten Sinema, she is smart as the devil. Let me tell you what. And she agrees with all of my agenda. Oh, really? If she agreed with all your agenda, why wouldn't she vote for it? Why isn't she supporting it at all? Again, Manchin. When it comes to Joe Manchin, I like Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's not a bad guy. He's a good guy. Joe Manchin is a literal coal baron that uses Republican talking points. Here's what Manchin said about Build Back Better. Quote, I've been very clear when it comes to who we are as a society, who we are as a nation. I don't believe that we should turn our society into an entitlement society. Now look, man, that is indistinguishable from something that you would hear from Mitch McConnell. Pretty sure he said that. No, but that's Democrat. The bottom line is this. Here you have corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans. Okay? Joe Biden, Mitch McConnell, Kirsten Sinema, Kevin McCarthy, Joe Manchin, all of these corporate-backed politicians have one thing in common. They all don't want what Bernie Sanders stands for. They hate it. They might like him as a person, and generally, most of the people on Capitol Hill are like, oh yeah, Bernie, he's a nice guy. I don't agree with him at all, but I think he's genuine. And by the way, that's why a lot of the American people also like Bernie Sanders, because even if they don't agree with him, they realize that he's a genuine person. Okay? But as far as policies go, they don't like his policies because it will help the people and not the owner-donors. The owner-donors is what all the corporate-backed politicians, that's who they work for. That's their boss. You don't want to upset the boss. And that's why they will always team up and always have the one thing in common where they have to get together to stop Bernie Sanders and others like him. It's not just Bernie Sanders. Bernie is just a face of the progressive movement. And that's what they want to stop most of all. Stop the United States from being more progressive when it comes to policy. Okay. So, let's move on. She's smart like the devil and just as corrupt. Maybe. Sinema is the devil, but not like Joe Biden thinks. All right. Move on. Following the deplatforming of people like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene from most social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you saw right-wing media get a massive surge in users. A lot of right-wingers are like, okay, I'm going to sign up for Gab, I'm going to sign up for Parler, I'm going to sign up for Telegram, I'm going to sign up for all this stuff. So, all these different sites, Rumble, Getter, all of them really grew since right-wingers went to these free speech sites, right? Now, it's kind of funny because, when you call them free speech, because they're actually not. Getter banned white nationalist Nick Fuentes. They just banned him. And by the way, Trump's Truth Social, as I pointed out before, would ban people for talking bad about Truth Social. Frank Speech banned people for swearing. And so it's really hilarious that they call themselves free speech, right? I'm for free speech, except for that and that. Oh, also, if you bug people who make the site on Getter, not on Getter, but on Truth Social, you can also get banned. Turns out they have all these rules. Weird. But anyway, nonetheless, they had this big gain of right-wingers. And since then, how have they been doing? Well, it turns out that after that initial surge, they stopped growing. In fact, they're not doing well at all. According to a new Washington Post analysis, conservative personalities on those sites are preaching to a very small group of hardliners. And the ones still using Facebook and Twitter to promote themselves are also seeing their audiences get smaller and smaller. Now, that of course leads to allegations they're being censored, when in reality, let's be honest, a lot of these right-wing sites or these right-wing influencers, they know how to game the algorithm. And they also have a lot of money behind them, which means being able to buy lots and lots of ads to pepper all around. For example, look, Facebook, you're able to buy a lot of ads and to get out to lots and lots of people, artificially increasing your reach so that you can reach new audiences. And well, now they can't really do that anymore. And so, again, if you don't get new eyeballs onto your content, well, I mean, that's not going to be good for your content, for your channel. And it turns out their biggest problem on these new right-wing websites, these social media sites, is that they're not getting new people anymore. Now, the Post analysis had reviewed the audience data for 47 well-known right-wing influencers who went to those news sites last year and found that beyond that first influx, they have barely grown. And in fact, in some cases, dropped. Interesting. So now, first, let me give you the numbers of how much they've actually grown. Now, right after Trump was banned from Twitter and different social media sites for promoting, the big lie and after January 6th, right? Those sites saw an initial growth of about 80%. So now the numbers really matter. And I don't know the exact numbers here, so let's just use a couple of random examples, right? So if you're starting, for example, on this right-wing website, it's fairly new, right? And you've got 10,000 or so active users. 80%, I mean, yes, it's still a gain. All right. And that's good, but not great. Now, if they have 1 million and it's up by 80%, increases by 80%, well, that's fantastic. Then you're doing much, much better. And so I don't know what the situation is, but considering how new a lot of these social media websites are, because they were created basically after Trump was banned, well, then there's not going to be, it's not going to be many people there. And so, yes, if you have 10 people and it decreases by 80%, well, that's not still very many people. So they're not doing very well. Now, that said, I'm sure there's more than 10 people. I'm sure there's probably a couple 100,000 people. All right. That said, the influencers previously had seen steady growth on Twitter and other big platforms that distributed their messages to a broad audience. But after their jump to the niche sites, the analysis indicates they largely failed to continue attracting new followers who weren't already engaged fans. And so what they have done is that they have created an echo chamber for themselves. Now, that's both terrible, actually. It's good in the beginning, maybe, because, oh, look, I've got all these people. But now it's also bad because, well, there's no more new people. And it has become an echo chamber. And so therefore, not only does it increase the rhetoric, I should say the severity of the kind of rhetoric that you see there as it gets more and more extreme, but also you're not getting new people, you're not growing your movement, you're not growing your channel, you're not growing your revenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a death knell, essentially, for whatever social media or channel or influencer you're trying to be. All right, so now, the report also said that right-wing Twitter copies like Gab and Getter and the YouTube twin Rumble have only focused on conservative audiences. Thus, they have struggled to keep growth going for their major users. On Gab, for example, Alex Jones, who joined in 2016 and was banned from mainstream sites in 2018, went from gaining roughly 25,000 followers a month in the first quarter of 2021 to adding about 1,000 followers a month for the rest of the year. Not very good. The analysis also showed that on Rumble, OANN ballooned to 75,000 subscribers after Trump was banned from social media. Since then, however, they've made it to about 900,000. All right, so again, I don't think those are terrible numbers. That said, OANN is kind of a huge funded network by AT&T. 90% of its revenue came from AT&T because AT&T wanted to create a conservative network. So they've got all this gigantic corporate money behind them, and they can only get, what, 900,000 people? As opposed to independent lefty channels, for example, and even independent right-wing channels that are on social media, that are in places like YouTube, Facebook. Let me give you some examples. By the way, this is on YouTube, right? So David Pakman, center left, right? I would consider him to be a center left. He's got over 1 million subs. He's doing better than OANN. Secular Talk, a little bit more lefty, 973,000 subs. Majority Report, 1.17 million subs. The Young Turks main channel, over 5 million. But OANN, you think that they would be doing way better when it comes to subs with all of this money behind them. But I guess there's no audience on right-wing websites. And that's the problem here. That's the problem here. And so there is a reason behind all of this. The report cited Darren Linville, a researcher at Clemson University's Media Forensics Hub, who explained that because the news sites are focusing on right-wing rabble-rousers, they developed a brand that they're the gathering spot for the QAnon fringe, anti-vaxxers, and others in the conservative world. So much of social media, he adds, isn't political at all. The biggest platforms are loaded with jokes, pop culture, cute photos, and other distractions that make up most people's daily media appetites. Starting a social media site means building multiple perspectives so you can have lots of different conversations happening to bring in lots of different kinds of people. Right-wing platforms, however, are one-trick ponies. They're only going to, by their nature, appeal to the type of person they are branded to appeal to, and there's only so many people in that world. So now look, I talk about bubbles, right? Well, lefty YouTube, it's a bubble. Definitely. And so, I mean, look, here in the YouTube news and politics vertical, I just, listed some of those channels off, right? But then you go outside of that, and you have channels with 20 million that talk about movies and pop culture and things like that. That's where the users are. And so actually the majority of people on YouTube don't watch news and politics, don't watch our political shows, don't watch the verticals, the news and politics vertical. And so what these other right-wing companies are doing wrong is that all they're doing is focusing on just that right there, on just that news and politics vertical. And it's strictly just about all right-wing. And it's, look, what lefty would want to go to those sites anyway? I remember being invited to do videos on locals. That's Dave Rubin's channel or venture, right? And I'm like, the fuck is this? No, I'm not going to, first of all, I'm not going to give my information over to people like Dave Rubin, my personal information, my address, my phone. No, my payment information. Are you kidding? Absolutely not. I don't trust them at all. And so, no, that's one reason a lot of people would likely not want to go sign up for these sites to do content. And the other is, again, who wants to go there and have whatever content they put up just bombarded by constant vitriol? I mean, think about it this way. You think the YouTube comment section is bad. Put up a video on Rumble and just watch everyone, oh, you fucking libtard. You have mental brain damage, soy boy, soy jack, cock. Just constantly. And so, yeah, we don't have any interest in that because they don't have any interest in actually having conversations. And so that's a bit of an issue here. All right. And so add on to that really is the fact that a team of researchers last year who analyzed data from R the Donald, a pro-Trump forum banned by Reddit that launched its own standalone site, found that the spinoff had far fewer members. However, the tone of the discussions, this is important, the tone of the discussions had become way more hateful. Turns out if you focus on creating a niche site for extreme right-wingers, you're going to get a niche following full of extreme right-wingers. And they're not going to want to have anyone get into the middle of that bubble. Now, of course, the result, the side effect, I should say, is that you're going to lose out on normal people. Normal people. You lose out on a new audience. And so, now, that said, right-wingers, they're not the only ones that are experiencing this problem. YouTube's actually starting down the path of creating these bubbles as well, but in a bit of a different direction, in a different way. So YouTube, you probably have noticed since like 2017, 2018, YouTube's algorithms steer people towards legacy media content. And by legacy media, I mean CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. So now what they're doing by doing that and not recommending any, lefty channels or any sort of, independent media, whether it be centrist, left or right, whatever, from their perspective, well, you're cutting off that voice and you are creating these echo chambers. And so that sucks. That's not good. You're preventing people from discovering different news and politics programs on their platform and actually reducing the membership. And again, you're creating these self-sustaining bubbles that will continue to dwindle. And so that is a problem. The result is the same. People are not discovering new content. A great example of this is David Dold, Rational National, recently did a video. And he talked about how for the year of 2021, he had 0 net new subscribers. The whole year. His content is not being served up to new people. Instead, people are being driven towards CNN, MSNBC, and yes, Fox News, which, by the way, if they wanted to protect against disinformation, you would think the first target would be Fox News, but no, it's not, because it is legacy media. And so that is a bit of a problem. And when all they're served up is legacy media channels, then why watch YouTube at all? When you could just watch legacy media on TV, on television. So, as I said before, yes, that's why all these right-wing media sites, these knockoffs, will fail. Not enough, normal people or new people to come to your site. And that means no growth, no future. Yep, YouTube keeps trying to get me to watch legacy media. True. Oh, did I contradict myself on that? Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's not a self-sustaining bubble. It's a slowly depleting bubble. Thank you for pointing that out. You got a brain fart. Thank you. All right. Let's move on. I recently got a recommendation for TPU. Is that Turning Points? Okay. Anyway. The January 6th committee has a new target, Ivanka Trump. Interesting. So now, according to reports, the eldest Trump daughter has been called before the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. Now, House investigators already said that they have firsthand testimony that Trump's eldest daughter had asked her father to intervene as he watched the U.S. Capitol riot on TV. And committee chairman Benny Thompson had sent a letter on Thursday asking her to appear before the panel on February 3rd or 4th, or possibly the following week. So it seems like a little bit more of a, I don't know, a suggestion for right now. I'm hoping that it's a little bit less of a suggestion, but we'll see. He said this: "You will anticipate the committee inviting some people to come talk to us. Not lawmakers right now, Ivanka Trump." Interesting. So now witnesses have told the Select Committee that that Ivanka had, as well as White House staffers, Republican lawmakers, and conservative media figures, all asked Trump to call off his supporters from attacking the Capitol, but refused to do so for 3 hours. When he made a short video posted on Twitter that, of course, repeated some of his, election lies, and of course, said things like, "You're very special. We love you. I love you. You're great. Go home. Go home in peace, but I love you." Come on. Now, the committee hopes to ask Ivanka about her father's pressured campaign against former Vice President Mike Pence ahead of the congressional certification of Biden's election, and concerns about it among White House officials, as well as her actions on January 6th and efforts to push her father's big lie. So, well, there it is. I mean, that's not great news for Ivanka Trump. Is she in massive amounts of trouble? Well, I mean, that remains to be seen, right? That said, let me give you more details here. So now, a recent interview with top Trump White House official Keith Kellogg is noted in a Politico piece, among many other interesting tidbits, including the fact that Kellogg had advocated against Trump speaking live from the White House briefing room because of concerns that he might go off message. Really? Well, I mean, it appears that your concerns were merited, were valid, for sure. Now, they also noted that after January 6th, Fox News host Sean Hannity had texted Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany advising her on how to talk to Donald Trump. The first item was, "No more stolen election talk." Well, so much for that. And the second was to emphasize that discussions around invoking the 25th Amendment and impeachment were real, and many people will quit. And that's, of course, referring to Joe Biden. You know, we're going to impeach him for the 25th, or no, I'm sorry, we're going to impeach him for something. We'll figure it out. And then if that doesn't work, the 25th Amendment. Okay, interesting. Now, McEnany agreed with Hannity's text, and I love this because this really does show you how they think about Trump supporters. Now, Hannity's text said that Trump should be kept away from, quote unquote, crazy people. The panel also noted that Katrina Pearson, a veteran Trump campaign operative who would help organize the rally that preceded the insurrection at the Capitol, had also used the term crazies in her texts, apparently to describe a number of President Trump supporters, such as Alex Jones, Alexander Ali, and a number of QAnon promoters. Fun That's what they think of. If you're a MAGA guy and you're watching, that's what Sean Hannity thinks of you. He thinks you're crazy. If you support January 6th, you're crazy. You're one of the nuts. You're like the Alex Jones people. Fun. Now, of course, Hannity denies all of that, downplays everything. Oh, no, oh, God, no, blah, blah, blah. But during January 6th, everybody around Trump was horrified. Absolutely horrified. Because the guy couldn't stop watching with glee. In fact, here's former Chief of Staff Stephanie Grisham saying, quote, "All I know about that day was he was in the dining room gleefully watching on his TV as he often did, saying, 'Look at all the people fighting for me,' hitting rewind, watching it again. That's what I know." And other accounts, of course, back that up as well, that he just absolutely loved watching the chaos unfold. By the way, this is the same thing where, people had erected a noose and were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." His vice president. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to him. You see, we're talking about Trump here. Democracy never mattered to him. The only thing that matters to him is power. And his ego, of course. So, yes, of course he loved the Capitol insurrection, while everybody around him was, of course, freaked out, horrified. Now that the danger has personally passed for many of them, especially the people who were in the Capitol that day, now they, downplay it, as we've seen. Oh, no, they were just tourists. Just tourists, guys. They're just here to see the art and then smear poop all over it, because that's what actually happened. They were patriots. There to fight for the country. That's what. Or they were secret Antifa, or maybe even FBI. Just ridiculous. None of that is true. And they know that. And they know that. And that's really the worst part. They're lying to the American people about it. They know it's not true, and they continue to lie and lie and lie all over and over and over again. I'm wondering what Ivanka's going to say. If she's even going to show up, it wouldn't be a surprise if she didn't. And then, if that's the case, well, they might have to be a little bit more persuasive. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Who we got? FBI Antifa. One America News host, Dan Ball, is having a normal one. Upon news that DirectTV might be dropping OANN, he decided to put out this message. Take a look.
If you've got any dirt on Mr. Kennard, I'd love to see it and put it on this program. You bring me concrete evidence of whatever it may be, cheating on his taxes, cheating on his wife, saying racial slurs towards white people. Folks do that. Whatever it may be, find it for me, bring it, and we'll air it. Everybody's got dirty little sins and secrets they're hiding. And this man deserves to have them exposed for what he's doing to not only this network, the owners, the hundreds of employees, but you, the viewers, who want a fair and honest and truthful voice. Don't let them do this to you, folks, by taking OANN off the air. We need your help.
The music. Oh, wow. Everybody's got little dirty sins and secrets they're hiding. And that this guy deserves to have them exposed. Why? For ending the DirectTV deal. Wow. All right, so lot to unpack here. Tell me that you're desperate without actually saying that you're desperate. Because that seems pretty desperate to me, All right, so let me get into the why, though. As I mentioned before, DirectTV announced on Sunday, following a routine internal review, it had decided not to renew its contract with Herring Networks, the owner of One America News. Now, aside from OAN, DirectTV also plans to drop the sister channel, also owned by Herring, which is a luxury-focused lifestyle channel titled A Wealth of Entertainment. Because, you know, there's nothing more that the people want to watch than rich people flaunt their wealth in your face. I mean, we all just want to tune in and watch that, don't we? Don't we? We're clamoring. Keep it on the air, along with OAN. Please, you're going to deprive me. No. Nobody watches that. And I'm going to guess that very few people watch OAN because it's a fringe network that appeals to the most ardently loyal far-right Trump supporters. That, along with the fact, of course, that it's created a little bit of controversy by, you know, pushing nonstop conspiracy theories. I'll give you some examples of that later. COVID disinformation and general pro-Trump nuttery. Gets himself in a little bit of trouble. So the Daily Beast noted that the majority owner of DirecTV, AT&T, has faced increased calls to drop the channel as a result. Now, they also have come under intense criticism in recent months after Reuters reported that AT&T not only played an integral role in launching OAN in 2013, but also had kept the channel afloat via a contract with DirecTV. In fact, this is according to a 2020 sworn testimony by an OAN accountant. Quote, 90% of OAN's revenue came from a contract with AT&T-owned television platforms, including satellite broadcaster DirectTV. If Daddy AT&T wasn't there and hadn't specifically created OAN, it wouldn't be here. It wouldn't exist. Sad, baby. Now, look, here's the thing. The reason that they created OAN is, of course, to rival Fox News and to create a conservative network. In fact, here's what OAN founder Robert Herring Sr. said in a 2019 deposition. Quote, they, AT&T, told us they wanted a conservative network. When they said that, I jumped to it and built one. Now, look, I don't have any problem with conservative networks. I don't have any problem with, you know, conservative competition, right? Fine, you want to build a conservative network? Build a conservative network. Good luck. Good luck to you, sir or madam. But here's the thing. They still could not compete with Fox News, even with Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, boosting the hell out of them. Now, the company claims that, in 2019, OANN was available in 35 million homes, and that the audience ranged from 150,000 to as large as 500,000. Though that year, Nielsen Medium Research estimated its viewership to be to as low as 14,000. Yikes. Although, of course, to be fair, they're not signed up with Nielsen. They claim, it's because Nielsen's too expensive to subscribe to. And so that's why we're not being rated by the Nielsen ratings or anything like that, because we just can't afford it. Bullshit. You get 90% of your revenue from Daddy AT&T. You can afford it. No, what they're doing, of course, is that they have such pathetically low viewership. They don't want anybody to know it. They don't want anybody to know that they suck. And so that's sad. Nonetheless, this desperation from Dan Ball, and I'll never get over that. Look, it really kind of illustrates how dire losing this DirectTV, deal really is. That it will be an absolute death knell for the network itself. This is an example.
If you want free speech, if you want freedom of the press like I do, if you enjoy watching One America News and this program, Real America, then please help us, folks. That is the chairman of AT&T, William Kennard. You heard me earlier describe who he is, his background, his connections to the Obamas and the Clintons for decades. Call AT&T's support line. Complain. Raise hell. email, phone call, daily, every hour. Set the alarm on your phone. Blow the phone lines up. Demand they keep OAN. This is censorship at its best. Folks, this man is doing nothing but a political maneuver by pressuring DirectTV, since they own 70% of them, to take us off the air.
The desperation. The desperation. It's so good. There's more. In a clip, I'm sorry, in a post on Facebook where he posted his clip, he also captioned it with this: "Tell the chairman of the board at AT&T that he go to hell for trying to cancel OANN. We must boycott everything at AT&T. Don't let them censor conservative voices. We didn't start this war with the woke mob and radical liberals." Let me just stop there. You think AT&T is full of woke radical liberals? What is wrong with you? What? No. There's no left in cable news. I mean, it's total insanity. There are no leftist voices on cable TV at all. You're kidding. No. But anyway, he continued or ended it by saying this: "By the grace of God, we will finish it and win." No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they're not going to win. I mean, and let me go back to another quote here from OANN lawyer Patrick Nellies, saying back in 2009, again during a deposition, quote, "If Herring Networks was to lose or not be renewed on DirectTV, the company would go out of business tomorrow." That's how much they rely on DirectTV. That's how much they rely on these deals. 90% of their funding. They don't make money. They lose money. And that's what happens, by the way, with a lot of these conservative networks. They lose money because they're not sustainable. And they're really only backed by Daddy Billionaire. And when they're left on their own, it turns out they just really can't compete in the marketplace of ideas. Weird how that works. So now, let me just add, I promised you that I would go through and talk about some of the crazy things that they've said, right? So now first, they're crying cancel culture. You heard that. But in reality, OAN is not only small, but it appeals to a fringe group and is nowhere near the size or revenue of Fox News. And also is getting AT&T into a lot of trouble by pushing out these insane conspiracy theories. For example, on George Soros. Yeah, they claim that George Soros collaborated with Nazis when he was 14. George Soros is Jewish. And that he is funding immigrant caravans into the United States. They have run that story. They also did a report from Ukraine with Rudy Giuliani. And this is what OAN correspondent Chanel Rion claimed without evidence. Soros had showed up to the airport with, quote, human Dobermans in little black Mercedes to find them. That makes no sense. Little human Dobermans, everybody. Total insanity. During the protests, the George Floyd protests, for example, OAN reporter Jack Posobiec had claimed that there were pipe bombs planted at a Korean War memorial in Washington, D.C., and that federal assets were in pursuit. They found no pipe bombs and no federal assets that had pursued it. There's more. OAN personality Pearson Sharp, back in June of 2021, had stated in an on-air monologue, quote, "The simple facts point to massive and widespread problems with voting integrity. And there have been numerous indications that foreign governments, including China and Pakistan, first it's in China, Iran, Italy, yes, Italy, Pakistan, all them, somehow meddled in our elections to install Joe Biden as president." What are the consequences for traitors who meddled with our sacred democratic process and tried to steal power by taking away the voices of the American people? What happens to them? Well, in the past, America had a very good solution for dealing with such traitors. Execution. The bottom line is that no one is above the law, and let this be a warning to anyone who thinks they are. The consequences are clear, and those responsible will be brought to justice for their role in undermining America's democracy. That's an OANN host calling for execution based on the big lie. On and on. Now, it's very clear that OANN is nothing but a gigantic, basically, it's nothing but trouble. It's nothing but trouble. It's getting AT&T into a little bit of hot water, and it's not making money, and it's a failure in pretty much every single regard when it comes to business. Better to jettison it now, says AT&T, than not only to lose money, but also be affiliated with something that is about to get bankrupted by Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic, who is suing them for a lot of money. Sad. Baby. Okay. Oh my God. One more story. I really have to learn to shorten these stories up. But there's just so much information. There's so much information. As a Doberman owner, I take offense to that. Dobermans have lots of redeeming qualities, and I don't care how much money I have. And don't care how much money I have. Hey, I wasn't trashing Dobermans. OANN's been on the air since 2013. And that's what it said in the story. All right. A professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Finance has gone viral after revealing that a significant percentage of her students have no idea how much the average American worker makes in a year. So now, this is very, very interesting because it really does show you how little the American people know about other people's financial situations and why we have such rampant inequality, or it's one explanation of why there's such rampant inequality and why there's seemingly so much pushback when it comes to measures to try to remedy that inequality. So now, Nina Strominger, a professor of legal studies and business ethics at Wharton, took to Twitter on Wednesday to share that 25%, a full quarter of her students, believe that the average salary of a worker in the United States is over 6 figures. That's what? One of them even responded believing that the average was $800,000. That can't be real. That can't be real. Nobody can believe that. That's got to be troll. That's troll level shit right there. I don't know, $800,000. I don't know. Oh, what could it be? What could it be, Michael? How much could it cost? $10? I mean, you're kidding, right? You're kidding. And so now she said one of them thought it was $800K, really not sure what to make of this. The real number is about $45,000. So I know what to make of this. It means we've got a pretty big problem with the understanding of wealth and income inequality. And a huge misunderstanding about what actually makes up the middle class in this country, who actually is middle class. So now there are varying metrics state by state, but generally, according to economists, if your household income for 2020 was between $50,000 and $135,000, then you'd be considered by them as a member of the middle class. Now, again, there's so much disagreement around these numbers. So it's really hard to kind of pin down where it actually is, because everybody says something different. And everybody believes, as I'm going to show you in a poll, everybody believes that they're middle class when they're not. Now, according to Social Security Administration, the average U.S. annual wage last year was $53,000, and the median wage was actually lower at $34,612. Now, most Americans tend to fall into that lower number and yet believe that they are members of the middle class. And yet, there are also, on the other end of the spectrum, there are people that are making six figures that also believe, wrongly, that they're a member of the middle class. Very, very strange. All right, according to a 2017 survey by Northwestern Mutual, about 70% of Americans consider themselves to be in the middle class. Now, of course, when you go back further to a 2015 report from Pew Research, it actually shows that the middle class has been shrinking over the past 4 decades and now makes up only about half of the U.S. total population. Now, it's 2020 now. Oh, I'm sorry, 2022, right? It's 2022, and we had a pandemic, and, I'm guessing that number, as a result of the pandemic, has fallen even further. Now that there are less people in the actual middle class, okay? And so, now, again, that seems to be a part of it. I think that most people are like, oh yeah, I make $40,000 a year. I'm middle class, yeah. And then of course you have people that are making $250,000 a year, for a family of 2, for example, that are like, oh yeah, what are you talking about? I'm totally middle class. And sure, let's be honest, a lot of it has to also do with where you are geographically located. For example, if you were living in New York and LA, well, the cost of living is so incredibly high in those cities, Seattle too, that if you're making $150,000, you might actually be middle class there. So there's a lot of skewing in the numbers here, which is interesting. But now let's also talk about the bubble, right? So now the Wharton School demographic, you're not going to be surprised, according to a 2017 New York Times report, found that the median family income of a student from Penn is about $195,500, and 71% of them come from the median top 20%. Not median, just top 20%. Sorry, misspoke. So now that's Wharton, right? Now understand that, okay, it's not everybody that is rich that gets into Wharton, right? Or these Ivy League schools. Let me give you an example. Great example, Cenk Uygur, founder of the Young Turks. Guy went to Wharton, an immigrant, son of an olive farmer, not exactly super rich, all right? Went to Wharton, but then again, on the other end of the spectrum here, you have Donald Trump, who also went to Wharton. So there's a big gap and a little bit of a spectrum. But generally, when it comes to Ivy League schools, most of the people who go there are pretty rich. And you will run into this question, if you go there, where do you summer? See, that's how you know you're around rich people. When they ask you, where do you summer? Well, what do you mean, where do I summer? Somebody asked me that question, like, what do you mean? What do you mean, where do I summer? I'm in my room with the air conditioner. That's where I summer. All right? And I don't want to move. I'd rather stay in that position. And so understand that these people are incredibly cut off from the actual real working class and middle class experience. But now there's more information here. At 38 colleges in America, including 5 in the Ivy League, Dartmouth, Princeton, Yale, Penn, and Brown, more students came from the top 1% of the income scale than from the entire bottom 60%. When you're in that bubble, everything's pretty good for you. You got it going on. Everything's great. You got stocks, you got investments, you got money saved. You're doing pretty great. All right? Your colleges, look, your university, your education's paid for. You think they're getting student loans? No, of course not. Well, why would you ever get student loans? When you can just borrow from mom and dad. Mom and dad will pay for it. I'm not saying that's the case in every single case. But generally, I mean, yeah, mom and dad, they're usually paying for this college, so nobody's ever touched student loan. I mean, how much could college be, Michael? $10? I'm sorry, I love using that quote. It's just so ridiculous, right? And by the way, if there are people that do need loans that go to these Ivy League schools, well, that's okay. Most of the time, they're able to pay them back fairly easily after they land a job at Goldman Sachs. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. So now, here's the thing. I actually don't have that much blame for them. I'm not attacking them. I'm just trying to kind of point out the mindset, where these people meet them where they're at, right? Which would be in the country club, apparently. But look, they live in this world. They're grown up in this world. They don't know anything outside this world. And so it's kind of not their fault that they don't understand, that they don't get it. They've never been exposed to the realities of being a member of the working class or the middle class, and they have no idea how much money that actually is. They don't understand the massive gap between the rich and the poor, and how they've been born with incredible amounts of privilege. Now, that same professor, by the way, said, look, don't be hard on these students. They don't understand these things, which, hey, you could probably teach them. And she probably is, to be fair. Now, I don't want to cash in on her or anything like that, because I think it's really interesting that she points that out. And so, and I'm glad she did, and I'm glad that it went viral. But she also posted on her thread a couple of studies, a link to a couple of studies. And I think these are pretty interesting, right? And just to show you how people, first of all, don't understand the income gap. And when they're presented with a model, with a society that has far more income equality than the United States, they're actually in favor of it. So let me show you this. This is from this it's from this study, right? So you can see there's pie charts, right? And so you've got the USA, and that's the income distribution of the United States. And then you have the income distribution in Sweden. Okay? And then, of course, you have the third one, which is complete equal income distribution. All right? So now, what's fascinating about this is, again, the level of income inequality in the United States. Now, let me give you some stats on that before I get back to this. The top 20% of Americans own 86% of the country's wealth. The bottom 80% own 14%. To further break it down, the top 10% held 69.8% of total U.S. net worth. And the top 1% holds about half of that, about 30% of the total net worth. So here you have a very small group, thousands of people, holding massive amounts of wealth, holding more than what the actual middle class holds in wealth. Now, if you look at Sweden, right, on the top left, you notice that it's a little bit more balanced. Well, I mean, you look at the United States, way more balanced than the United States. And so now, in the study, people were shown this. And by the way, these were not labeled. And so nobody knew what was which, right? So now most people, when presented with this, believed that the Sweden pie chart was America, was the United States. They're like, oh yeah, no, the even pie chart, that's us. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now, the study further points out the unlabeled United States distribution to the respondents was far less desirable as well than both the unlabeled Sweden and even the equal distribution, with some 92% of Americans preferring the Sweden distribution to the United States. In addition, this overwhelming preference for the Sweden distribution over the United States distribution was robust across several different metrics, First of all, gender. 92% of women preferred Sweden, 90% of men. Political affiliation. Now, of course, this is an older study, and so they looked at Democrats and Republicans. In this case, the 2004 election. Long time ago. Okay. So now, people who preferred George W. Bush still preferred the Swedish model at 90%. Whereas voters of John Kerry, Democratic voters, preferred at 93.5% the Swedish model. And of course, you look across income distributions. If you're making less than $50,000 a year, 92.1% of them preferred the Sweden model. If you're making it between 50 to 100,000, 91%. So very similar breakdowns. It is really kind of amazing. And even when you get over $100,000, still 89% of those making over $100,000 a year preferred the Swedish breakdown of wealth and income distribution. That's amazing. Now, in addition, there was also a slight preference for the distribution that resembled Sweden relative to the equal distribution, suggesting that Americans prefer some inequality to perfect equality, but not to the degree currently present in the United States. So that is really, really fascinating, this study. Just absolutely fascinating. And so what do I gain from this? I mean, there's a lot. But for one thing, it really kind of illustrates how people have no fucking clue how bad the wealth distribution is in this country. If they believe that we already have the Swedish model, and they go, oh yeah, no, we're pretty much even. I mean, we've got this upward mobility. Everything's fine. What are you talking about? We're all even. Look, the average American worker makes 6 figures. Oh, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't at all. And so why? Why is this the case? Propaganda. Corporate media propaganda. And let me explain. Corporate media, as I pointed out many times in the show, that serves who? Well, it serves the corporations. It serves the donors, right? By design. Corporations, and by the way, corporate media is corporations. And so they prefer economic policies that do an uneven distribution, transfer of wealth from the middle class, the working class, to the very wealthy. And that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen in this country. A massive transfer of wealth from the middle to the top. And again, they do that because they are designed to maximize profits. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profit. They have to. They have to. That's their one, they're a robot, and that is their one command. And so, look, in so doing, right, they will, of course, prioritize politicians and policies that serve that interest 100%. And so not only that, but these same corporations, as well as media companies, will then, of course, pay certain politicians in campaign bribes to stamp out policy that would actually more equally distribute wealth in this country to workers. So understand that that's what's going on. That's the situation here in this country that has happened for the last, 40, 50 years? Somewhere? Or around that number of years? Very long time. And of course, a lot of that does come from money in politics that was introduced by the Supreme Court and by the Reagan administration. That said, right, a lot of people also are confused about what capitalism is, right? So now, let me break that down real simple. Because again, this is a result of capitalism as well. Unless you're investing in or an owner of a corporation, you are not a capitalist. You're a worker. People making $30,000 a year working in an office building, you're not a capitalist. You're a worker. Capitalists are those at the very, very top. Those are the people that are stealing the surplus value of your labor. You're not the capitalist. They're the capitalists. So, you know, that's the reality. That's the reality. And so once you realize that, you also realize that maybe you ought to stop listening to corporate funded media when they say things like, oh, we can't do universal health care. We can't tax the rich because that will destroy business and will destroy the the country. And it's because we're capitalists. That's why we can't tax the rich, because we're capitalists. It's not true. And it's just a way to continue that uneven, unequal transfer of wealth that goes from you to the very top. All right. I think I'm pretty clear. That's all I got. That is all I got. But here's the important question. How many avocado toasts do the poor eat every day? Ah, yes. It's about the toast. Too much toast. If only I hadn't drank coffee and had an avocado toast, I could be a millionaire right now. But God damn it. That toast. Too much toast. All right. Anyway. Watching new here, never know if a feed is sane or delusional. Well, you know, I tend to think that I'm fairly sane. But, you know, you'll have to watch. Make your mind up for yourself. Unfortunately, we're done for the day. And so, but don't worry. We have a stream tomorrow. We'll have a Friday show, same time, same place, 4 p.m. Eastern for all of those who are in the East Coast. And then, of course, you can look up the times for Central, Pacific, etc. All right. So that said, thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Please like and share the stream. Those of you who are on, Twitch, who are watching on Twitch, who want to see the clips, we put up our clips both on Facebook and on YouTube. So it's youtube.com/WaldorfNation. And on Facebook, it's Jeff Waldorf Show. So check those out. Like, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff. And please share, and share. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you all. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody. You have a good evening.
There's insanity in the control room.
How you like that, boy?
Like pads.
Give me a break.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.